The alien queen thought her human husband was just a farmer. Then he drew the sword. Verdantia was a place of endless green fields, soft hills, and rivers that glittered under twin suns. It was a peaceful world, the kind that made humans feel at home even in the midst of alien stars. Here, humans lived simply, planting crops, tending animals, and trying to carve a life in a universe that often forgot their existence. Among these humans was Jonas Hale, a man known by everyone in his small settlement as a quiet and capable farmer. His farm was large by human standards, stretching across a patch of fertile land where golden wheat swayed in the wind and vegetable gardens thrived. Jonas was tall and broad-shouldered, with hands roughened by years of work and eyes that seemed to see more than the ordinary. To the alien eye, he was nothing extraordinary, a simple human tending to a simple life. Yet Jonas was more than he seemed. Every day, after tending his crops and feeding his livestock, he would go to a hidden part of the forest where the trees grew tall and thick. There he practiced movements with a sword he kept concealed. Not a simple blade, but a weapon of unusual craftsmanship, slender, balanced, and sharp. Its metal shimmered faintly in the sunlight, a gift from an old human sage who once whispered of the strength hidden in humanity. Jonas moved with precision and care, his muscles learning the rhythm of a life he had never told anyone he had planned for. Jonas lived with Queen Ciliara, the ruler of Verdantia and the highest authority among the alien population. Ciliara was a striking figure, tall, elegant, with skin that shimmered like silver and eyes that glowed with intelligence and command. She was the embodiment of her species, strength and cleverness. When she first agreed to marry Jonas in a political arrangement, she had believed he was nothing more than a simple human farmer. A quiet creature, small-minded and unworthy of notice in the grand affairs of the galaxy. Every day, Ciliara walked through the human settlement, observing her subjects with curiosity and mild amusement. Humans were peculiar, she thought. They worked hard, laughed easily, and seemed endlessly cheerful despite the hardships of alien rule. To her, they were harmless, pleasant, but ultimately insignificant. And among them, Jonas was the quietest, most unassuming of all. She watched him often, seeing only a strong human who tilled the soil and repaired fences, completely unaware that he was studying her people, their habits, their weaknesses, and their strategies. The humans themselves spoke in hushed tones about Jonas. Some called him lucky, others skilled, but no one truly understood the depths of his knowledge. He listened more than he spoke. He learned more than he shared. And when the alien scouts passed through the settlement, he watched carefully, noting every movement, every pattern, every flaw. It was not suspicion or fear that guided him, but a quiet preparation, a plan he had not yet revealed. Ciliara, meanwhile, lived in the palace that overlooked the fields. The palace was a massive structure, its towers stretching into the sky, constructed of crystal-like materials that reflected sunlight in dazzling patterns. From there, she could see the humans working in their fields, hear their laughter, and feel the rhythm of their lives. She found them fascinating in a distant way, like observing creatures in a forest. And she often observed Jonas, thinking of him as nothing more than a curious pet she tolerated because of the political alliance. On one bright morning, Jonas stepped out of his farmhouse, wiping sweat from his brow. His fields were ready for the harvest, and he moved among the crops with ease, checking the wheat, bending to pull out weeds and examining the soil. Around him, human workers moved in harmony, following his instructions. He did not raise his voice, yet his words carried authority and humans obeyed willingly. "You need to rotate the soil this year," he told one young man, pointing to a patch that had grown weak. "It will grow better if you plant legumes first, then wheat. Watch carefully." The young man nodded and hurried to follow the advice. Jonas smiled faintly, satisfied, and moved on. He did not boast or complain. He simply worked as he had always done, quietly preparing, quietly observing. That evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, Jonas went to the hidden clearing in the forest. The sword he carried reflected the last rays of sunlight, casting a long, dancing shadow on the ground. He moved through exercises he had memorized, each step precise, each swing calculated. To the casual observer, it would seem like he was merely practicing form, but in truth, every movement was a test, a preparation for a day he knew would come, a day when his skills would be needed far beyond the fields of Verdantia. Ciliara in her palace observed him from a distance. She watched silently from a balcony, her eyes following the human figure among the trees. "Such patience," she whispered, almost unconsciously. "Yet he is just a farmer." "Nothing more?" She shook her head, smiling faintly at the absurdity. Little did she know, the man she dismissed as simple was preparing for challenges that would shake the foundations of her world. In the evenings, Jonas would return to his farmhouse, eat a simple meal, and talk to Ciliara about ordinary things. They discussed crops, weather patterns, and minor trade issues. Ciliara found comfort in the simplicity of their conversations. She enjoyed the calm presence of her human husband, believing that he was content with the quiet life and that he posed no threat to her authority or intelligence. "What did you see today in the fields?" she asked one night, sipping a warm beverage prepared from the human harvest. "Nothing unusual," Jonas replied, his tone casual. "The crops are healthy, the workers are diligent, and the weather is favorable." That is all. His words were simple, yet behind them lay a mind that had noticed far more than he revealed. Ciliara smiled, satisfied. She leaned back in her chair, thinking that humans were charming in their simplicity, and that her husband, while stronger than most, was harmless. She did not suspect the fire that burned within him, a fire not of anger, but of patience, planning, and readiness. That night, as the twin moons rose over Verdantia, Jonas stepped outside once more. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, and he felt the quiet power of the human spirit, the resilience that had carried his species across planets, across challenges, across the prejudices of alien rulers. Humans were underestimated, ignored, dismissed. That made them stronger. That made them dangerous in ways others could not imagine. He looked toward the palace, where Ciliara slept under the protection of her alien guards. She would never guess what humans were capable of, what plans could be woven from patience, intelligence, and courage. He sheathed his sword and returned home, blending into the quiet life of a simple farmer, carrying a strength and knowledge that would one day surprise the galaxy. The next morning, life continued as usual. Jonas went to the fields, Ciliara observed him, and humans worked quietly under the alien gaze. To the outside eye, nothing was unusual. Peace reigned on Verdantia, but beneath the surface, the stage was being set. A storm was coming, a storm that humans would face not with overwhelming technology alone, but with cunning, bravery, and a readiness that the aliens would never expect. Jonas plowed the fields, repaired a broken fence, and talked to workers about planting schedules. Every action was ordinary, yet every action was preparation. Every observation, every note, every small improvement in the fields, in the workers, in his own body, was a step toward something greater. He was ready for the moment when the galaxy would finally see what humans could do when underestimated and overlooked. And so, the quiet life continued, a life that seemed simple but was anything but. In the shadows, Jonas trained. In the open, he worked. And all the while, the alien queen, brilliant and observant, remained blind to the truth, that her husband was not merely a farmer, but a man who carried the strength, intelligence, and courage to change the fate of a planet. The people of Verdantia slept under the twin moons, unaware of the storm that was gathering. And Jonas Hale, the quiet human farmer, smiled faintly to himself, knowing that when the time came, he would draw the sword, and the galaxy would remember that humans were never to be underestimated. The sun rose slowly over Verdantia, spilling golden light over the fields of wheat and stretching across the hills. The air was crisp, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers and fresh soil. The humans moved through their daily tasks, unaware that far beyond their quiet lives, the galaxy was changing. Reports had come from the outer colonies, whispers of unrest, scattered rebellions, and alien factions breaking away from the Dominion. Some claimed that humans were beginning to show unexpected cleverness, organizing themselves in ways that made alien commanders uneasy. Most dismissed these reports as exaggeration, a sign of overcautious scouts. But Jonas Hale listened carefully to every report he could hear. As a farmer, he moved among the fields and workers, smiling and offering guidance. Yet in the shadows of the settlement, he maintained secret communications with human enclaves on nearby planets. He had built a small network of trusted humans who shared intelligence, maps, and strategies. What looked like idle gossip or market news was, in truth, careful planning. Jonas did not speak of rebellion or war to anyone outside this circle. To the aliens, he was still just a farmer. Queen Ciliara observed the settlement from her palace balcony. The sunlight glinted off her silver-tinted skin, and her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the fields. She admired the human diligence, their orderliness, and the way they worked together. Yet in her mind, they remained harmless. They had no weapons capable of challenging her armies. They had no strategy, no skill, no power that could threaten her. Jonas, however, knew better. He had studied the alien defenses and technology in secret, noting every pattern, every weakness. Alien patrols followed strict routines. Supply lines ran predictably. Ships had blind spots. The Dominion was strong, yes, but not infallible. Humanity's strength lay not in machines, but in intelligence, courage, and the ability to think in ways aliens could not predict. The day began like any other. Jonas walked through his fields, examining the crops, checking irrigation, and speaking to his workers. He smiled as he offered simple advice about planting schedules and harvesting techniques. His hands were rough, calloused, and covered in soil, yet he moved with quiet precision as though every step was calculated. A young human named Lena approached him, carrying a basket of vegetables. "Jonas," she said, "I saw scouts from the outer colonies passing through. They said some humans are forming secret groups. Do you think it's true?" Jonas paused, looking at her with calm eyes. "It is true," he said quietly, "but we must be careful. Our strength is in subtlety. We act only when the time is right. For now, we learn, we observe, and we prepare." Lena nodded, understanding the importance of patience. Most humans would have been afraid if they knew the truth about their situation. They were surrounded by aliens with advanced technology, ruling with intelligence and strict discipline. Yet Jonas inspired them, not with speeches or commands, but by quiet confidence, by the knowledge that humans had the power to survive and even prevail when underestimated. Meanwhile, Ciliara met with her advisors in the palace. They discussed the scattered rebellions and rumors of human cleverness, but she remained unconcerned. "Our humans are simple," she said. "They work, they obey, and they smile. They do not plan, they do not fight, they do not challenge. Let us focus on the outer colonies. That is where the real trouble begins." Her advisors agreed, confident that humans posed no real threat. They underestimated Jonas as she did, and that would be a mistake. That afternoon, Jonas walked to a small grove on the edge of his land, where ancient trees grew tall and dense. There, hidden beneath the roots of one massive tree, he revealed a concealed box of tools and supplies. Among them were maps, scrolls, and small mechanical devices humans had developed in secret. Each item had a purpose, a function that could give humans an advantage if the time came to resist. Jonas studied the maps carefully. He traced paths of alien patrols, noting gaps in surveillance. He marked locations where supplies were stored, ships docked, and communication lines ran. Every detail mattered. Every observation could be used to protect human lives or to strike strategically if needed. It was not enough to fight with strength alone. Humans had to fight smart. And Jonas, more than anyone, understood this. As he worked, a shadow moved across the grove. Ciliara had come quietly, observing him from a distance. She had no guards with her. She trusted that humans were harmless. Yet curiosity drew her closer. She watched as Jonas carefully measured distances, adjusted a small device, and moved with precision. "What is he doing?" she whispered to herself. "It looks like planning." But he is just a farmer. She did not realize that her human husband was more than what she had ever imagined. Jonas noticed nothing of her presence. His focus was absolute. He was calculating, preparing, and training, all under the guise of ordinary life. The humans in the settlement also began subtle preparations. Under Jonas's guidance, they practiced moving quietly, carrying tools that could be used as weapons, and learning to read alien patrol patterns. To any observer, it was harmless labor. To those paying close attention, it was training for something greater. Days passed, and reports of disturbances in the galaxy increased. Rogue alien fleets attacked smaller colonies, expecting minimal resistance. The Dominion responded with overwhelming force, confident in its superiority. Jonas observed each conflict from a distance, analyzing tactics, strategies, and weaknesses. He shared insights with trusted humans, helping them understand not only how to survive, but how to resist effectively. Ciliara continued her observations. She noticed minor changes among the humans. They worked more efficiently, moved more quietly, and seemed to anticipate certain events before they happened. Still, she dismissed these signs as coincidence, believing that humans could not possibly organize on a scale that threatened alien authority. One evening, Jonas gathered a small group of humans in a hidden cellar beneath his farmhouse. The room was simple, lit by flickering lanterns. The air was thick with anticipation and excitement. Jonas spoke quietly but firmly. "We are stronger than they think," he said. "Not because of their machines, not because of their numbers, but because they do not understand us. We plan, we observe, we learn, and when the time comes, we will act with courage, intelligence, and unity." The humans nodded, inspired. They knew the risks. They knew that if discovered, the consequences would be severe. Yet under Jonas's leadership, fear did not paralyze them. Instead, it sharpened their focus, strengthened their resolve, and reminded them of the human spirit that could endure and overcome against all odds. In the palace, Ciliara discussed the situation with her advisors again. "Perhaps we should monitor the humans more closely," she said. "There are whispers, and yet they continue their daily work without concern. It is unusual." Her advisors assured her it was unnecessary. "They are harmless," one said. "They work, they obey, and they smile, nothing more." Ciliara nodded reluctantly but felt a subtle unease. Something in her mind whispered that humans were not as simple as she believed. But she could not place it, and her curiosity gave way to the comfort of routine. Night fell over Verdantia, painting the sky with the light of twin moons. Jonas stood outside his farmhouse looking at the stars. He could see the faint glimmers of distant colonies, some in distress, some in peace. Every flicker of light carried information. Every signal could be interpreted, every weakness studied. He held the sword in his hands, feeling its weight and balance. It was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of human resilience, patience, and readiness. One day it would be drawn not for sport or pride, but to protect, to defend, and to surprise those who had underestimated humanity. Back in the palace, Ciliara could not sleep. Her thoughts returned to Jonas, the quiet human who tilled his fields, repaired fences, and smiled at workers. She dismissed her unease as imagination, yet deep down, a small part of her wondered if she had misjudged him. Could a human, so ordinary in appearance, truly possess depth, intelligence, and strength beyond what she knew? The next morning, Verdantia awoke to another day of ordinary life. Humans worked in their fields, children played along the rivers, and aliens conducted their usual patrols. The surface of the planet appeared peaceful, calm, and uneventful. Yet beneath that calm, plans were unfolding. Jonas met secretly with his human allies, sharing information, testing strategies, and preparing for the inevitable moment when humanity's true strength would be needed. They practiced moving silently, observing patrol patterns, and using their simple tools in ways that would give them an advantage over technologically superior enemies. Ciliara continued her watch from the palace, unaware that her husband's quiet life hid careful preparation, subtle intelligence gathering, and the patience of a man ready to act when the time was right. She continued to believe he was a harmless farmer. And that, Jonas knew, was humanity's advantage. Because the galaxy never expected the quiet ones, the humans who smiled, worked, and appeared ordinary, to be the most dangerous, clever, and courageous of all. And Jonas Hale, the man who tended the fields by day and trained in secret by night, was ready. The first whispers of war had reached Verdantia. The human spirit was quietly preparing, waiting, observing. And when the time came, those whispers would turn into a roar that would shake the Dominion and reveal the true strength of the human race. The morning air on Verdantia was filled with the usual sounds of farm life: crows cawing over golden fields, the gentle hum of rivers flowing across the plains, and the steady rhythm of humans working under the twin suns. For most, it was just another peaceful day. For Jonas Hale, it was the day his quiet preparation would face its first true test. Reports had arrived from scouts orbiting Verdantia. A rogue alien faction, far from the Dominion's oversight, was attacking the outer colonies. These factions were ruthless, expecting little resistance, and were equipped with powerful ships and advanced weaponry. To outsiders, these attacks seemed minor. To Jonas, they were a warning, a signal that even Verdantia, hidden as it was, could soon be targeted. By mid-morning, Jonas had gathered a small group of human volunteers in secret. They were farmers, laborers, and craftsmen, ordinary people in every outward way. Yet under Jonas's guidance, they were more than ordinary. They were strategic thinkers, clever observers, and agile fighters trained in ways the aliens could never imagine. Jonas walked among them, calm and steady, giving instructions. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice low but confident. "We do not fight like the aliens. We do not rely on their machines. We rely on our intelligence, our speed, and our courage. If we are careful, we can protect our people and even strike back." The humans nodded. Fear was there, but so was determination. They trusted Jonas because he had never asked them to do what he would not do himself. Every man and woman present had trained in secret, learning how to use ordinary tools as weapons, how to move silently, and how to observe the enemy without being seen. By noon, the first wave of alien ships appeared over the horizon. They glinted under the twin suns, their engines humming as they descended toward Verdantia's outer colonies. Jonas stood at the edge of his fields, surveying the approach. He had memorized the patrol paths of alien drones and ships. He had studied the weaknesses in their formations. Now everything would be put to the test. "Spread out," Jonas instructed his group. "Use the terrain, stay quiet, observe and wait for the right moment." The humans moved swiftly, blending with the hills and trees. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense, yet their knowledge of the land gave them an advantage. Using the natural cover of forests and hills, they positioned themselves where the aliens least expected. Every tool in their hands had been adapted. Plows became levers, sickles became slashing weapons, ropes could trip patrols, and simple traps could disable alien devices. The rogue aliens landed, expecting no resistance. They sent small squads into the fields, laughing at the idea of encountering human opposition. "Weak creatures," one of their officers said, his voice sharp with condescension. "They will fall easily." Jonas watched from a distance, his eyes calm but alert. "They underestimate us," he muttered, "and that is their mistake." The first encounter was subtle. A group of humans had placed a series of weighted poles near a narrow path. As the alien patrol approached, Jonas gave a small signal, and the poles fell, blocking the path and forcing the patrol to slow. The humans used this moment to disable the alien drones with makeshift EMP devices crafted from human technology adapted for secrecy. The aliens were startled. They had not expected resistance. One of the patrol officers barked orders, trying to regroup, but Jonas's team had already moved to higher ground, using the hills and forests to their advantage. The humans struck quickly, disabling communication devices and using nets and ropes to trap smaller alien machines. Ciliara, observing from her palace, noticed unusual activity. "What are the humans doing?" she asked her advisors, puzzled. "They are organized." Her advisors were unsure. "It must be coincidence," one replied. "They are simple beings, they cannot coordinate like this." Ciliara frowned. Something about the scene unsettled her. The humans were more clever than she had imagined, and one figure in particular moved with a calm precision that was unusual even for humans. She narrowed her eyes, her curiosity tinged with concern. Meanwhile, Jonas continued to lead his team. They moved like shadows, striking only when necessary and withdrawing before the aliens could respond. They used terrain, traps, and clever tactics, and with each small victory, their confidence grew. Though outnumbered and outgunned, their intelligence and preparation gave them an edge. As the rogue alien squad advanced further, Jonas spotted a supply convoy, ships carrying weapons, fuel, and important equipment. He quickly devised a plan. "We will stop them before they reach the main settlement," he said. "Split into two groups. One distracts them, the other disables the convoy." The humans moved with coordination and precision. The distraction group used fire and smoke, creating the illusion of a larger force. The convoy team, moving silently, sabotaged the vehicles and ships, rendering them useless. The aliens were confused and frustrated, unable to predict human movements. By late afternoon, the humans had successfully disrupted the rogue faction's initial attack. They had protected the settlements and even inflicted damage on alien forces without direct confrontation. Jonas observed the results with quiet satisfaction. Their actions had been precise, intelligent, and effective, proof that humans could fight in ways that technology alone could not counter. Ciliara, watching from above, felt a mix of awe and alarm. She had believed her humans harmless, but the scene before her told a different story. "They are clever," she admitted quietly, "and he, my husband, he is leading them." Her advisors were shocked. Impossible, one said. He is just a farmer, he cannot. Yes, she interrupted. He is not just a farmer, he is something else entirely. As evening fell, Jonas returned to the hidden grove at the edge of his farm. The sword he carried was sheathed at his side, a quiet reminder of readiness. The humans gathered around him, tired but exhilarated. They had faced superior forces and emerged victorious, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, strategy, and courage. We did well today, Jonas said, addressing them. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy is changing, and we must continue to prepare. Remember, strength is not only in arms. It is in thought, observation, and unity. Never underestimate your own power. The humans listened intently. They understood that their work, their patience, and their cleverness had allowed them to achieve something extraordinary. They were not soldiers, not in the traditional sense, yet their actions had made a difference. That night, Jonas walked to his farmhouse alone, thinking of the larger challenges ahead. The rogue faction had been only the first strike. Reports suggested that larger alien forces were mobilizing, likely in response to the resistance they had encountered. Verdantia was still safe, but only because of preparation, intelligence, and timing. Ciliara could not sleep. Her mind replayed the events of the day. The humans had fought and won against aliens with advanced technology. They had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outthought them at every turn. And her husband, the quiet man she had dismissed as a simple farmer, had led them. Her eyes, once filled with amusement, now held a mixture of respect and unease. In the settlement, humans celebrated quietly. They did not boast, but they shared smiles, exchanged nods of respect, and felt a deep pride. They had faced danger, protected their homes, and shown that even the most ordinary human could accomplish extraordinary things when underestimated. Jonas returned to his farmhouse, finally taking a moment to rest. He cleaned his sword, checking its edge and balance. It had not yet been used in battle, but the day had proven its importance. It was a symbol of preparation, readiness, and human strength, a quiet promise of the power yet to come. As he gazed at the twin moons rising over Verdantia, Jonas knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would continue to test humanity. Rogue aliens, Dominion forces, and unexpected threats would come. But humans were ready. They were clever, resourceful, and brave. And when the time came, they would rise, not with fear, but with courage, intelligence, and unbreakable resolve. In her palace, Ciliara finally understood the truth. Her husband was not just a farmer. The humans were not just simple laborers. They were a force that could not be ignored, a species underestimated at their own risk. And for the first time, she wondered if her decisions, her assumptions, and her confidence in alien superiority had been mistaken. Jonas Hale, the quiet farmer, had turned the first page of a story that would change Verdantia forever. And though the galaxy remained unaware of the full extent of human strength, Jonas and his people were ready. They had faced their first challenge and had emerged victorious, not by the power of machines alone, but through courage, intelligence, and the cleverness that humans carried in their hearts. The sun set over Verdantia, painting the fields gold and shadow. The humans returned to their homes, tired but proud. The aliens retreated, confused but unharmed, unaware of the true potential of the species they had long underestimated. And Jonas, standing alone in the quiet of his farm, sheathed his sword, knowing that the next challenge would come, and that humans would be ready when it did. For the first strike had been won. But the war for recognition, respect, and survival was only beginning. The morning sun rose over Verdantia, spilling light across the fields that had once been quiet and peaceful. Birds sang from the hills, rivers sparkled, and humans moved through their daily tasks. But the calm was an illusion. Today, the true test of humanity's courage and intelligence would begin. The Dominion fleet was approaching. Unlike the rogue faction that had attacked the outer colonies, this force was massive, precise, and ruthless. Ships the size of mountains glinted under the sun, their engines humming with power. Alien troops poured onto the landing platforms, armed with advanced weaponry and prepared for an easy victory. They believed that humans, simple and obedient, would offer no resistance. Jonas Hale watched from the edge of his field, standing tall among the hills. His sword hung at his side, sheathed but ready. Around him, hundreds of humans moved quietly, taking positions across the fields, forests, and hills. Farmers, craftsmen, and laborers had become something else entirely, a force ready to defend their home. Remember, Jonas said, addressing his people. Do not fight like the aliens. Use what you know. Use the land. Use your minds. Strike when it matters and retreat when it is smart. Today we show that humans are not to be underestimated. The humans nodded. Their faces were tense, but their eyes burned with determination. This was no longer practice. This was real. And they would fight not just for survival, but to prove the strength of humanity itself. From the palace, Queen Ciliara watched the approaching fleet with her advisors. She had seen humans accomplish surprising things before, but nothing could have prepared her for the sheer scale of Jonas's preparations. Fields were dotted with humans taking strategic positions. Traps, barricades, and hidden paths had been laid out with precision. This is unusual, Ciliara admitted, her voice tight. My husband, my humans, they are not what I thought. Her advisors looked uneasy. It is just luck, one said. They cannot truly oppose the Dominion. Ciliara shook her head. No, this is intelligence, planning, skill. Jonas, he is leading them. The fleet began its descent. Alien troops disembarked, confident in their superiority. They moved in disciplined formations, their advanced weapons scanning the fields, their drones patrolling the area. They expected humans to scatter, to flee, to hide in fear. Jonas waited. His eyes swept the battlefield. He had studied alien patterns for months. He knew when and where to strike. He had prepared humans for this exact moment, training them in stealth, observation, and the use of ordinary tools in extraordinary ways. Now, he whispered, and his team moved. The first strike was sudden. Using hidden trenches and natural cover, humans disabled patrol drones, tripped alien machines, and created chaos among the troops. Alien officers barked orders, but their formations broke as humans appeared where they should not have been. They moved with precision, striking and disappearing, using speed and cunning rather than brute force. Ciliara watched, her heart racing. Her eyes fell on Jonas as he moved calmly through the chaos, directing humans with gestures and quiet commands. He carried no visible weapon in his hands, only the sheathed sword at his side, yet every action showed confidence, skill, and authority. The aliens were taken aback. They had expected humans to scatter. They had expected confusion, not coordination. They had expected fear, not strategy. And at the center of it all was Jonas, leading with quiet strength, observing with sharp intelligence, and striking at exactly the right moment. As the battle intensified, Jonas realized that to truly turn the tide, he would need to draw the sword. The blade, forged long ago by human ancestors, carried energy and strength that even advanced alien technology could not fully withstand. It was a symbol of human courage, readiness, and ingenuity, a force that would surprise the aliens and the Dominion alike. Jonas reached the clearing where the alien commander had positioned himself. With a calm motion, he drew the sword. The metal gleamed, catching the sunlight and sending a flash across the battlefield. The sound of its draw was soft, yet it carried an unspoken message. Humans were no longer to be underestimated. The alien troops froze, momentarily stunned by the sight. The blade moved with precision and grace, deflecting attacks, disabling advanced devices, and cutting through obstacles. Humans cheered quietly from their positions, inspired by the skill and power displayed by the man they had always trusted and followed. Ciliara could hardly believe her eyes. Her husband, the quiet farmer she had dismissed as harmless, now stood at the center of the battle, wielding a weapon that combined human ingenuity, history, and courage. "Jonas," she whispered, "all this time you were preparing." The alien commander moved to confront Jonas, confident in his superior strength and technology. He lunged, swinging a heavy weapon, expecting an easy strike. Jonas sidestepped with a fluid motion, using his knowledge of human movement and timing. He countered with the sword, disarming the alien and sending him stumbling back. The battlefield erupted in action. Humans, inspired by Jonas's display, moved with renewed energy and courage. They used clever traps, hidden paths, and coordinated strikes to disable alien machines and protect their settlements. Every human on Verdantia fought not only with bravery, but with the cleverness that aliens could not anticipate. Ciliara's eyes followed every movement. She saw the humans not as weak or simple, but as a coordinated, intelligent, and courageous force. And at the center of it all was Jonas, calm, precise, and unstoppable in his focus. The battle raged for hours. Alien troops tried to regroup, but Jonas's strategy was flawless. Humans moved quickly, striking only when necessary, withdrawing when it was smart, and using the land to their advantage. Their resourcefulness and patience turned the tide of the battle. Finally, as the sun began to set, the aliens began to retreat. They had underestimated humans at every turn. They had dismissed the intelligence, strategy, and courage that lay beneath the calm surface. And they had faced a man they believed to be a simple farmer, a man who now wielded a sword that symbolized the unbreakable spirit of humanity. Jonas sheathed his blade and turned to his people. "We have done well," he said, "but remember, this is only the beginning. We defend not just our homes, but our dignity, our courage, and the truth of who we are. We are humans, we are strong, and we are never to be underestimated." The humans cheered quietly, exhausted but proud. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious, not by the power of technology alone, but by courage, intelligence, and cleverness. They had proven that even the most ordinary human could accomplish extraordinary things when underestimated. Ciliara approached Jonas as the last alien ships retreated. Her silver-tinted skin gleamed under the fading light, and her eyes, usually sharp and calculating, were filled with awe and respect. "Jonas," she said softly, "all this time I thought you were just a farmer. I could not see what you are capable of." Jonas looked at her calmly. "I have always been more than a farmer," he said. "And humanity is more than it seems. We endure, we plan, and when the time comes, we rise. That is who we are." Ciliara nodded slowly, finally understanding the truth. The humans of Verdantia, led by her husband, had shown courage, intelligence, and strength that even the Dominion could not ignore. Her assumptions, her pride, and her confidence in alien superiority had been challenged, and she would never underestimate humans again. That night, Verdantia was quiet. Humans returned to their homes, tending to minor injuries, repairing minor damages, and sharing quiet smiles of pride. The battlefield was calm, but the lesson was clear. Humans were not weak. They were clever, courageous, and capable of extraordinary things when underestimated. Jonas walked to the edge of his field, sword in hand, looking at the stars above. He knew the war was not over. The Dominion would respond. Other alien factions would challenge them. But today, humanity had proven its worth. Today, humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and unity were stronger than brute force alone. Ciliara watched from her palace window, her mind racing. She had believed Jonas to be harmless. She had believed her humans to be simple. But the truth had revealed itself on the battlefield. And now she understood that her husband, the quiet, strong, clever human, was a leader, a strategist, and a warrior unlike any she had ever imagined. The first great battle for Verdantia had been won. And humanity had risen. Verdantia's skies burned with the light of twin suns as the Dominion fleet approached once more. This time, it was not a small rogue faction, but the main force of the Dominion itself. Massive ships stretched like mountains across the horizon, and alien troops filled the landing platforms, armed and confident. They expected to crush the humans easily, just as they had thought all along. But today would be different. Humans were no longer simple farmers. Jonas Hale, the quiet man they had dismissed, stood at the forefront of a growing army of humans, each one prepared, alert, and ready. He had trained them, guided them, and inspired them. Now they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do. Jonas surveyed the battlefield from a hilltop. Behind him, hundreds of humans took their positions in forests, hills, and fields, using the terrain to their advantage. Traps had been laid, observation points prepared, and communication lines established that the aliens could not detect. "Remember," Jonas said to his people, "today we fight not just for Verdantia, but for every human who has ever been underestimated. Strike with intelligence, move with speed, and trust your courage. We are humans, we are strong, and we will not be ignored." The humans nodded, determination shining in their eyes. Farmers, blacksmiths, and laborers were now warriors, not in the sense of brute strength, but in cleverness, patience, and teamwork. They were ready. The aliens began their landing. Troops disembarked from ships, weapons raised, and drones scouted ahead. They moved in perfect formations, confident that humans would scatter, hiding from their superior technology. They did not know that the humans of Verdantia had studied their every move. They had learned their weaknesses, and they were ready to exploit them. Jonas stepped forward, the sword at his side glinting in the sunlight. Unlike the previous skirmish, this was no longer a test. This was the decisive battle. The humans waited silently, their breaths calm, their minds focused. With a single motion, Jonas drew the sword. It shimmered with energy, reflecting light across the fields. The sound of its draw was soft, but it carried authority, strength, and courage. The humans cheered quietly from their positions, inspired by the sight of their leader standing tall against impossible odds. The first clash came swiftly. Alien troops advanced, expecting little resistance. Jonas moved with precision, using the sword not only as a weapon but as a symbol. With each strike, he disabled advanced alien machinery and cut through obstacles with ease. The humans followed his example, moving with coordination, strategy, and confidence. Ciliara watched from her palace balcony, her eyes wide. Her husband, the man she had thought simple, was now a warrior, a leader, and a strategist. Humans moved across the battlefield with skill, using traps, terrain, and clever tactics to outmaneuver the aliens. It was more than she had ever imagined. "Jonas, all this time," she whispered, awe and fear in her voice. "He is not just a farmer, he is a warrior." The aliens, caught off guard by the humans' coordination and ingenuity, began to falter. Machines meant to protect them were disabled. Drones were trapped and destroyed. Soldiers were redirected by simple, clever tactics that no alien would have considered necessary. Jonas had taught his people to think, adapt, and use every advantage at their disposal. The battle reached its peak at the central landing site. The alien commander, a massive figure clad in shining armor, moved to confront Jonas directly. He expected an easy victory. Jonas met him calmly, sword in hand, standing firm as the commander charged. The clash was intense. The alien struck with strength and speed, but Jonas anticipated every move. He used clever footwork, timing, and his deep understanding of strategy to counter every attack. His sword, a weapon of both history and human ingenuity, blocked and deflected, while small sparks of energy from the blade disabled the aliens' advanced armor systems. Humans, inspired by Jonas's skill, moved around the battlefield like shadows. They used ropes, nets, and traps to hinder alien movements. Makeshift projectiles and clever devices disabled key machines. Even ordinary tools, hammers, plows, and axes, were transformed into effective weapons when used with intelligence. The humans were unstoppable, not because of raw power, but because they fought with unity, courage, and cleverness that the aliens could not predict. Ciliara could hardly look away. Her husband, once the quiet farmer, now led a human army that was challenging the might of the Dominion. I underestimated them," she admitted aloud. "All this time I thought humans were weak, but they are brilliant, and Jonas, he is extraordinary." The alien commander lunged again, aiming to strike Jonas down. But Jonas, anticipating the attack, sidestepped and countered with a precise strike of his sword. The commander staggered, disarmed, and fell back. For the first time, the aliens realized that their superior technology and strength could not easily defeat humans who combined intelligence, courage, and skill. The battlefield shifted. Human morale soared while alien forces grew confused and frustrated. Humans moved in coordinated strikes, disabling supply lines, securing key positions, and protecting their homes. Every farmer, every laborer, every ordinary human had become extraordinary when united under the guidance of Jonas. Ciliara descended from her palace, moving closer to the battlefield. She saw her husband fighting not with arrogance, but with calm authority. His movements were precise, his strategy flawless. Humans around him were inspired, confident, and daring. She realized fully that the man she had thought simple had been preparing for this moment all along. Jonas's eyes scanned the battlefield. His sword struck again, disabling another alien device. His hands moved with skill, directing humans with gestures and quiet commands. He did not fight for glory, he fought for his people, for the truth of humanity, and for the future of Verdantia. The alien commander, recognizing defeat, signaled retreat. Ships lifted off, troops withdrew, and the field fell silent except for the quiet cheers of the humans. Verdantia had been defended. The aliens had been shown that humans, underestimated and dismissed, were a force to be reckoned with. Jonas sheathed his sword and turned to his people. "Today," he said, "we have proven what humans are capable of. Not because of machines or brute strength, but because of courage, intelligence, and unity. Never forget this moment. Never forget that we are strong, and never underestimate ourselves." The humans cheered, exhausted but triumphant. Farmers, blacksmiths, and workers embraced one another, knowing that they had achieved something extraordinary. They had faced overwhelming odds and had emerged victorious, not as individuals but as a united human force. Ciliara approached Jonas slowly. Her silver-tinted skin gleamed under the sun, and her eyes were filled with respect and admiration. "Jonas," she said softly, "all this time I thought you were just a farmer. I could not see the truth." Jonas looked at her calmly. "I have always been more than a farmer," he replied. "And humans, we are always more than we seem. We endure, we plan, and when the time comes, we rise. That is who we are." Ciliara nodded, understanding fully for the first time. The humans of Verdantia, under Jonas's leadership, had shown courage, intelligence, and skill that no alien could ignore. She realized that her assumptions, her confidence in alien superiority, and her underestimation of humans had been mistaken. The sun set over Verdantia, painting the fields gold and shadow. Humans returned to their homes, tending to minor injuries, repairing damages, and sharing quiet smiles of pride. The Dominion fleet had retreated, forced to reconsider the underestimated humans of Verdantia. Jonas walked to the edge of his fields, sword in hand, looking at the stars above. He knew the war was far from over. Other alien forces would come. The Dominion would respond. But today, humanity had proven its worth. They had defended their home, protected their people, and shown the galaxy the true strength of the human spirit. In the following days, news spread across the planets. Humans of Verdantia were no longer seen as simple farmers and laborers. They were intelligent, courageous, and clever. Their victory had inspired humans on other worlds, proving that even ordinary people, when united and prepared, could overcome impossible odds. Ciliara worked with Jonas to rebuild Verdantia. She had learned humility, respect, and awe for the humans she had once dismissed. She had also learned that true strength is not always visible at first glance. It can lie in patience, intelligence, and courage waiting for the right moment to emerge. Jonas returned to his farm, tending his crops as he had before. But now his sword hung beside his plow, a symbol of vigilance, readiness, and the enduring strength of humanity. He smiled quietly, knowing that humans, underestimated for so long, had finally shown the universe what they were capable of. Verdantia thrived. Humans were respected and celebrated for their courage and intelligence. Aliens, even those from the Dominion, began to see humanity in a new light. Jonas Hale, the man who had once been dismissed as a simple farmer, had risen to lead his people. He had drawn the sword not for pride, but to protect, to inspire, and to prove that humanity, clever and courageous, could stand against any challenge. And so, the quiet life of a farmer had become legend. Humanity had risen, not with overwhelming technology, but with courage, intelligence, and unity. The story of Verdantia would be told for generations, a tale of how one human, underestimated and overlooked, drew the sword and showed the galaxy the true power of the human spirit.